say. All you need to know about the trip to Israel is that our guide said, I don't like him on the trip. I like it when people come on the trip that don't know anything.
The showdown.
Oh, gosh.
So, very well, Daniel 3, 4, and 5. 3. Oh, 3. Oh.
Actually, the end of 246.
Chapter 3. Yeah. Going to the furnace.
Things are going to heat up, you're saying?
Yeah.
Keep you awake. Yeah. We will make it.
Yeah, I didn't know.
And I learned from the last time, when they're all done, and the doctor says, you're all right. You don't say to them, well, which people you have? I'm like, sure.
Father George, may I ask you to start us off with
No,
prayer?
since you do that.
No.
So I'm gonna skip that.
Lord Jesus, this is a holy moment. This is a spiritual moment when all these committed men gather to draw closer to you and draw closer to you in the written word. We love you. We praise your holy name. We give thanks for your promise to be with us when 2 or 3 are gathered together in your name. And we certainly done that tonight. So we give thanks for your presence here. Ask for your blessing on our leader tonight as he guides us and directs us in the study of Scripture. We praise your holy name. We love you, Lord Jesus. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you. Well, we're sort of right at the end. Amen. We're right at the end of Daniel 2. We almost made it through. Almost, with the incredible dream about the 4 empires and then the perpetual kingdom of Christ. I'm just going to read this quickly at the ending because it's kind of important. Daniel has interpreted the dream for Nebuchadnezzar, and here's his response. The king, that is. Then King Nebuchadnezzar fell upon his face. Think about that. And did homage to Daniel and commanded that an offering and incense be offered up to him. The king said to Daniel, truly your God is God of gods and Lord of kings, and a revealer of mysteries, for you have been able to reveal this mystery. Then the king gave Daniel high honors and many great gifts, and made him ruler over the whole province of Babylon, and chief prefect over all of the wise men in Babylon. And Daniel made request of the king, and he appointed Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego over the affairs of the province of Babylon. But Daniel remained at the king's court. So, this is kind of important because, what does this remind us of? Joseph, yeah. So you remember, God put Joseph, through a set of very unpleasant circumstances, in a position to do what for his people? Save them. Brought them down into Egypt when the great famine came, and they were able to defend. And as we know, it was all part of God's plan. They were going to be enslaved, and he was going to liberate them, and the nation was going to be formed, established. So what's happening here? What's happened to these 4 guys, Daniel and his 3 friends? They've been what?
Honored.
They've been honored by the king, absolutely. What happened to them that got them into this position in the first place? They prayed. Before that, at the beginning of the book, what happened?
They were taken into exile.
Yeah.
Kidnapping service.
Kidnapped, yeah. So it's kind of a circumstance, a little bit like Joseph, where man's plan was one thing, right? And God's plan was a different thing. And God has now put these 4 guys in place stay in place, Daniel, for the entire 70 years of captivity. God's taking care of his people. What we're saying is that a horrible thing has happened to Israel. Israel's right back to where she started. She's no longer a country. She's been destroyed. Jerusalem's been destroyed. The temple's been destroyed. He's been carried off into captivity by a mighty empire. The mightiest the world has ever spent to that point. And this is God's goodness. What do you think of this? Then King Nebuchadnezzar fell upon his face.
There's this felt prostrate.
Yeah, fell prostrate. Prostrate. That's right. Not prostate. That would be something else.
Yeah, felt prostrate.
Yes. Pretty amazing, isn't it? Because remember, we were talking about what a scary guy this dude is. You know, he's an we used to call him Oriental despot. I'm not sure we're allowed to use that term anymore. It's not politically correct, but we saw the same thing in, what do you mean, Esther? This is a scary dude. Here he is. On fire.
We live in a society where the worship is fall down before anyone. If we're lucky, if we're intimate enough with God to worship Him in a form where we're prostrate before Him. So the idea of anyone falling down in front of someone in that kind of just surrender, you know, is just, it's mind-boggling.
You think it'd be the opposite way, that Daniel
Yeah.
would do that, but he would do that.
As the CPAs are talking about, those four guys were using St. Lucia. They were set apart from the time Israel was getting destroyed, and they were pulled out and set apart for a huge purpose from the beginning. So they were put into a place of being little saints right away. The chosen ones.
You're absolutely chosen for this great role in his life. And it's very important because this is the preservation hope of God's people. As we're going to see in just a while here. And that's what his faith.
To me, though, I see his situation more similar to Moses, in some regards also similar to Jesus. I mean, if you look at all three of them, they all were in a period of captivity. They all were given some type of favored status in which they could make really transformational in terms of kind of a religious change. I mean, if you look at, Moses was in Egypt, and then he basically brought them out of Egypt. But none of them had anything about military conquest. He basically transformed the people into the Israelite religion, which went from really polytheistic to more of a, not even monotheistic, it was more of a believed in one God but recognized other gods. And then you have Daniel comes along, and he's now the one that really, they said, really brought together the Torah and really created Judaism. And to me, it's significant that he came after the civil war between Israel and Judea. So he was basically bringing up the Yahweh, developing that. And then when you look at Jesus, his captivity was really the time he spent on earth. And his special privilege was given to God to really take, once the monotheism was established, to then say, okay, now this is for all people, not just exclusive to the Jewish people. And then also bring forth the promises of the New Testament. So I see it as almost a three-step process, the similarities that Daniel had between Moses and Jesus.
Yeah, I'm sorry. No. That is a fantastic segue to the incredible story that we have in chapter 3. I'm sort of tempted just to read all of chapter 3 because it's one story. So would some kind and willing person do that for us, please? Thank you.
King Nebuchadnezzar made an image of gold, whose height was 60 cubits and its breadth 6 cubits. He set it up on the plain of Dura in the province of Babylon. Then King Nebuchadnezzar sent to gather the satraps, the prefects and the governors, the counselors, the treasurers, the justices, the magistrates, and all the officials of the province to come to the dedication of the image that King Nebuchadnezzar had set up. Then the satraps, the prefects and the governors, the counselors, the treasurers, the justices, the magistrates, and all the officials of the provinces gathered for the dedication of the image that King Nebuchadnezzar had set up. And they stood before the image that King Nebuchadnezzar had set up, and the herald proclaimed aloud, "You are commanded, O people, nations, and languages, that when you hear the sound of the horn, pipe, lyre, trigon, harp, bagpipe, and every kind of music, you are to fall down and worship the golden image that King Nebuchadnezzar has set up. And whoever does not fall down and worship shall immediately be cast into a burning, fiery furnace." Therefore, as soon as all the people heard the sound of the horn, pipe, lyre, trigon, harp, bagpipe, and every kind of music, all the peoples, nations, and languages fell down and worshipped the golden image that King Nebuchadnezzar had set up. Therefore, at that time, certain Chaldeans came forward and maliciously accused the Jews. They declared to King Nebuchadnezzar, "O king, live forever. You, O king, have made a decree that every man who hears the sound of the horn, pipe, lyre, trigon, harp, bagpipe, and every kind of music shall fall down and worship the golden image. And whoever does not fall down and worship shall be cast into a burning, fiery furnace. There are certain Jews whom you have appointed over the affairs of the province of Babylon, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. These men, O king, pay no attention to you. They do not serve your gods or worship the golden image that you have set up." Then Nebuchadnezzar, in furious rage, commanded that Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego be brought. So they brought these men before the king. Nebuchadnezzar answered them and said to them, "Is it true, O Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, that you do not serve my gods or worship the golden image that I have set up? Now, if you are ready when you hear the sound of the horn, pipe, lyre, trigon, harp, bagpipe, and every kind of music, to fall down and worship the image that I have made, well and good. But if you do not worship, you shall be immediately cast into the burning fiery furnace. And who is the God who will deliver you out of my hands?" Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego answered and said to the king, "O Nebuchadnezzar, we have no need to answer you in this matter. If this be so, our God whom we serve is able to deliver us from the burning fiery furnace, and he will deliver us out of your hand, O king. But if not, be it known to you, O king, that we will not serve your gods or worship the golden image you have set up." Then Nebuchadnezzar was filled with fury, and the expression of his face was changed against Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. He ordered the furnace heated 7 times more than it was usually heated. And he ordered some of his mighty men of his army to bind Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, and to cast them into the burning fiery furnace. Then these men were bound in their cloaks, their tunics, their hats, and their other garments, and they were thrown into the burning fiery furnace. Because the king's order was urgent, and the furnace overheated, the flame of the fire killed those men who took up Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. And these 3 men, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, fell bound into the burning fiery furnace. Then King Nebuchadnezzar was astonished and rose up in haste. He declared to his counselors, "Did we not cast 3 men bound into the fire?" They answered and said to the king, "True, O king." He answered and said, "But I see 4 men unbound, walking in the midst of the fire, and they are not hurt, and the appearance of the 4th is like a son of the gods." And Nebuchadnezzar came near to the door of the burning fiery furnace. He declared, "Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, servants of the Most High God, come out and come here." Then Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego came out of the fire. And the satraps, the prefects, the governors, and the king's counselors gathered together and saw that the fire had not had any power over the bodies of those men. The hair of their heads was not singed, their cloaks were not harmed, and no smell of fire had come upon them. Nebuchadnezzar answered and said, "Blessed be the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, who has sent his angel and delivered his servants, who trusted in him and set aside the king's command, and yielded up their bodies rather than serve and worship any god except their own God. Therefore I make a decree Any people, nation, or language that speaks anything against the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego shall be torn limb from limb, and their houses laid in ruins. For there is no other God who is able to rescue in this way. Then the king promoted Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego in the province of Babylon.
Wow. So I think Tim needs to make a recording of the Bible. What do you think? Yeah, beautiful. Thank you, Tim. Now, if you all are sort of wondering how King Nebuchadnezzar went from falling down, I come
Yeah.
to say prostrate because I'm caught with prostate, so falling down before Daniel and proclaiming God, the God of gods, to this, well, apparently some time passed.
Yeah.
Okay. So the experts seem to think about 18 years had passed between the story of Daniel's interpreting the dream and this. And that's plenty of time in human terms, as we all know, for us to forget. In fact, 2 years, or maybe less, is enough to help us to forget. 10 hours. 2 hours. So yeah, 18 years had gone by, and it was plenty of time for Nebuchadnezzar to have a different heart at this point. So what in the world? How big is this image he's created, this gold image? How big is it? 90 feet tall. Yeah, and we're assuming it's probably an image of a man of some kind, you know, like the statues of the Greek gods. Yeah, 90 feet tall, plated with gold. That's quite an image. Now, how many of you remember the Iraq War when the cameras first went into Baghdad the first time? Remember seeing the gigantic sword that they had at the edge of the city? This huge sword. Well, this was kind of like that. What would Nebuchadnezzar's, I'm going to call him Nebu for short, what would his reason be for wanting to construct this and bring all of his provinces' leaders to come and bow down?
To show his power and authority and in part, it wasn't like he considered himself an actor, like more than people, you know, like the people like divine, like later like the Roman emperor.
He was very insecure too.
I mean, some people buy fortunes and stingrays and stuff like that, but 90-foot statue, but hey, check out this, man. But it showed up in the beginning, the reason why he brought, he brought the best of the Jews, or the Israelites, to train them on me, and they had beautiful court and stuff, so I was just thinking when you said that 18 years, not the Spirit of God, you could forget he saw that. We would chase the shiniest penny or even a dull penny so fast, so it could have been the next day that his ego came back.
And it's not the first time he's going to forget it, so the story continues.
He was like, how dare you not follow my decree?
Rage. But what's the secret source of that rage?
They don't follow it. They disobey, and I think that the verse, I think 17 or 18 of when Jack's the piece, the reveal of faith of this guy. They said the king, even if our God, if you don't believe in us, we don't disobey God. You know, if you die, we die. That's the real kind of the level of faith, because they are ready to give their life without. They knew God. You see, the people that walk with that's applied to us. When they walk with the Lord for a lot of times, you know, the Lord rescue him again and again, and so they trust in Him. You know, they put their lives in the hands of God, and God will rescue them again. And that's faith in kingdom. They don't shake even with the threats of the king. More than a king, he was like a ruler of another.
his empire was one of the 27 provinces, and so it was very big. Not, a king was like a small, it was a,
Really a city.
What or who does the statue represent?
We're gonna assume it represents Nebuchadnezzar's God and but we don't really know.
Well, and here, yeah, like you say, really, the stories from damned and come premature. Like the chapter begins with an egocentric decree by the Babylonian ruler so puffed up that he commissions a skyscraper-sized statue of himself. It ends with a rescue so sensational that it really persuades the ruler to change religion.
Well, yeah, it could have been. So
Yeah.
they don't know.
Right.
So that's an interpretation, and it's a good one. But I can just tell you, if you look at the commentaries, they're a whole lot different.
Right.
I want to come back to Chris's most excellent point, however. Why would he, the insecurity, what's really going on in him? He's so full of rage that these three guys won't bow down to this statue. It's important because we have to remember that we see a lot of shows of power in the world. They're almost always rooted in that which is not power. Fear. I mean, even Hitler, the more show he made and the bigger the armies and the bigger the mass gatherings, that was really covering up his fear.
a typical case of that was King Herod. He was a puppy king. That's whatever. He killed everyone, in Senate because he was told somebody take him over. But this guy will rule like even less land than a province. This was an empire. Besides, it was a puppy king put to buy the Romans over there.
It's almost like, it's sort of black and white thing. Either I am ruler of all, or I am ruler of none. And that's totally unacceptable, so I have to be ruler of all, you're dead.
You see that in the cult.
Yeah.
Absolutely, very much.
We're still saying this today. So, remember we were talking about wisdom last week? I think it's part of wisdom to look at these things and stand off with this 10,000-foot view that the Bible so graciously gives us. And look at this and look at the world around us and understand that we have to be afraid. What's the only thing that endures here? It's not his statue, what is it? It's the faith of the Lord God. It's important to put the world in perspective that way. So let me ask you something. All of these guys from different nations with different languages, different city-states and so forth, and that he brings them all in, he brings all the leaders in and forces them to bow down. Did they all believe in his God? No.
Here, no one is disobeyed because, or they come, they come disobey, get killed. That's like this guy. That's the same word they went through, but now the Lord is delivering them. But they are ready, right?
Yes, that's a very good point, but I'm thinking of Ron's point also, and that is this. Why would they not object as pagans to bowing down to Nebuchadnezzar's God? Why would they offend?
Just another God.
It's just another God.
Right.
This is a watershed point in the whole Bible, as Ron said, right here. This is a watershed point. Remember Moses saying, what's his big commandment? Hear, O Israel. Right. This is a watershed point because the guys who wouldn't bow down believed in the one true God.
They got thrown in the fire.
So,
They came out. A lot.
Well, yeah, but I mean, they could have gone through just said, hey, even cover it up, I'm just gonna give them lip service or whatever, but they didn't.
The risk reward was not there for, the thing about it, if their gods are stationary, they're statues, they're made up.
right?
There's not this big risk, oh my God, if I worship another god, I might get smitten dead. It was an inanimate object, so it wasn't like the living God, which had had that Meshack and Abednego problem. Very different animal.
But the Bible all the time you see, was a few men, but the majority what happened to the Israelites? They all stand with the Lord, or they follow exactly the first reason they went there was because they're idolatry. And most of them are observed by the pagan. Only a few, Levites, and later they returned. So most of the people, their faith was lost. But God always, even in the midst of the circumstances, you got to compare with Jeremiah 29, and God said, I have the plans for you. I have the plans what he talk about, get 70 years in Israel. So God prepared, but not all of them follow the Lord. That's what, like every time. Only a small remnant was faithful to the God of Israel. That's all. A few they come back. Most of them they are absorbed by the paganism because they are before the right reason they went there because they are in the deep idolatry.
I gotta admire also the fact that they didn't know what God's plan was.
Oh.
They said they clearly said, but if not, be it known, O king, we will not serve the gods and worship the golden image. So they were prepared to die and be burned up. And I've got to admire the realism in terms of just realizing, Lord, we can't twist your hand to what we want you to do. We're just not going to serve anyone else. And we've seen, time and time again, Christians and faithful people over the years, some of who have martyred and some of who have passed through those circumstances. I also got to laugh at the Chaldeans. I mean, I want to put in parentheses in my scripture here in verse 9. They declared to the king Nebuchadnezzar, "Oh God, live forever." I mean, "Oh King, live forever," and in parentheses, suck ups.
Well, long live the king, that's what they
Oh,
always.
man,
Yes,
yeah, no,
absolutely.
that was it, the first thing out of their mouths, "Oh king, live forever."
The other piece I see here is the Nebuchadnezzar's characters coming out that, he's easily provoked and manipulated by these people.
Yes.
And he's so insecure, and
Yeah.
he's just being yanked around, he really has no power.
In a sense.
Yeah.
That's right. I want to go out John Locke on us, but it's very, very true. And that's yours is the source of all this repeated. Therefore, as they heard the tribe of the lyre, the tribe on the harp, the bagpipe. But he was trying to do whatever he could to make a show of power. But his power was an illusion. That's what the story shows us.
Could you imagine going on the street here and somebody saying, "Oh, no, we gotta push the deck out."
Would you shut up? I know you love singing, but it says any kind of music.
Groundhog Day all over again.
No, I really can't. He built this statue, and he wanted everybody to come. And in his mind, did he really believe that they were for real, or just giving a show? Because I can remember, as a custodian, I would tell my guys, I want to do this way. Maybe if I had my 6 custodians, maybe 3 would buy into the way I wanted to do it. I mean, he really had to kid himself.
Oh, absolutely. I'm sure that 75 or 80% of the people, as you said, who were bowing down were,
I'm gonna save my skin.
this is a bunch of baloney. I gotta go through with
That's
this.
the reason we want to.
But that's something else that's true also of these powerful regimes of any type. They are based on fear, and that's what gets you to.
I spent a lot of time when I was out, surgeries and stuff.
Yeah.
And just did some studies on culture in North Korea and stuff like that. And there's a lot of interesting documentaries. It's
fascinating to see that the whole setup of when Westerners were there and they're bringing you through and they're bringing you to the home family. The families were just, you know, you have no idea whether it's real or not because all they do is, oh, great, oh, the great leader, he gives us everything. And they just, they play the part. They play the part. And they've got the pictures up on the wall and stuff like that. It's no different.
Does anybody know Alexander Simpson? It was a great book, the Blood about the USSR. There's a horrifying scene where the party had to keep their apparatchiks and everybody else are all together in a large room. And Stalin says something and they're cheering for him. And all of a sudden it becomes clear to Solzhenitsyn, do you stop? They were afraid to stop cheering. They didn't want to be the first guy who stopped cheering. That's what these four young men, three young men in this case, were up against. They're up against groupthink, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they're going the other way. They're not going to fear Nebuchadnezzar. Who are they going to fear?
I think there's something else that's going on. I mean, part of, and I'm just making a huge leap here, part of his rage was envy and just jealousy. How could these guys have that kind of cojones to come up against me and win? There has to be some yearning inside of him to have real confidence. And that had to have pissed them off even more than everything else. Because they had something that when you couldn't buy, you couldn't create, it was their living God.
Actually, we know for a fact that he was jealous. What did he do that tells us that? I mean, let me ask you this question. It's a burning furnace. Do you have to heat it up to kill people?
But he wanted to make sure he got it 7 times hotter.
7 times hotter. He
Or whatever,
killed his own
10 times.
soldiers.
Yeah, right?
So we know he was jealous. This is from youth. It's not from today. But you know what? It's still important to us today to remember that. Because yes.
Do you think, I mean, I'm listening to you talk, but I'm got a different interpretation of what's happening here.
Good.
You know, excuse me, because I'm coming from a different, it's almost as though he's testing God. I think truly, in his own way, he sort of believes in Daniel's God in the back of his mind. And each thing that he does is like raising the ante. Okay, first it was the dream, the interpretation of everything. Okay, everything is good. We'll give you, at the end of 3, he gives everybody power of the Babylon, the 3 of them. Now he's up to this point with the furnace business. And he's doing his thing, and these people go in, and they come out, and he probably says, interesting. And then the next chapter, we got Daniel going into the lion's den, which is like, he knows he's going. I mean, he could have stopped that in a heartbeat if he wanted to. But I think in the back of his mind saying, how powerful is his God? It's almost like Moses with the plagues. You know, that's, you know, what else can they throw at us? Oh my God, he's throwing this at us, he's throwing this at us. Doubting Thomas putting his fingers into Christ's ribs, into his belly. You know, part of him is like up in the ante. Oops, they did that. Check that one off. You know, I mean, he's got a certain amount of ego, but there's also a certain amount of possibly he's starting to turn in his own back of his mind somehow.
So in that case, the psychology would be that he's resisting there is a voice telling him.
Something.
There is the one true God. He's
Yeah.
resisting. That voice in himself.
Yeah.
That's kind of saying when you think of him as an absolute ruler with absolute power. That's certainly. That's something we don't ever have to deal with. And you know what? Thank goodness.
But
Having absolute power.
in history, up until almost like the 16 or 1700s, all the monarchs, even if they were incompetent, they always made the claim that they were set in their position by divine, or had some kind of divine connection, when a lot of times it was by circumstance, by birth or whatever. So, well, no, whatever. But I mean, so in a way, this challenges his legitimacy. That he probably was a competent ruler, but you know, a lot of the rulers back then, they had that link that said, the legitimacy was not just, was ordained through God, it wasn't just through an election or whatever.
And that's why he built a god.
Yeah.
And that's why the Romans were talking about having themselves declared emperors, because they declared gods, because they wanted to refer to something more than
That's a great point, because, it's, if you don't trust that God is sovereign and God is great, and you have a lot of doubt, and you're gonna try and prove that God isn't great, so you don't have to fall prey to following him. And I think it happens so much in the church, we water down God's sovereignty, so that worship and following is so much easier for us. We don't have to give up much of our ego to go to church and get involved in a relationship with religion. Because surrendering to the Almighty is terrible if you don't know how much He cares for us. And if you're insecure, then you're already 90% out the door. So, I mean, it kind of goes hand in hand with insecurity and testing, and hoping that God is not real, so I don't have to worship someone greater than myself. I mean, this goes way around to like, how do we deal with our relationship with the Lord ourselves? How much of us are still worshiping our own abilities versus surrendering to God's grace? Sorry, I went way around in a circle, but that was a great point.
how many of us are resisting in ways that we're not even as trying to build some interpretation. Nevertheless,
And over time, it tends to break its balance. You go through life and get to different spots and places where you realize, that He is Lord. It's continual, isn't it?
it's continual. And we find out from Ecclesiastes that it doesn't just end, but it goes right on into old age.
And more times than not, when we have anger that comes up inside of us, we don't really know where it came to. Because it's fear. It's because we've lost sight of that God is greater than our feelings. And for me, I know that for myself personally, when I start getting frustrated and angry inside, I'm going, all right, what's going on in my belief system, in my heart? What's going on right now? I mean, I can be pissed off at my son. I can be pissed off at real things. But when that frustration's going on inside of me, it's, all right, where am I in my relationship? When did I become sovereign and put God below me? Sorry to bring that up, but
That's good.
Yes.
I mean, did Nebuchadnezzar ever pause and say, where's this rage coming from? Was he that introspective? And I think God really wants us to do that. When something comes out, it's like, whoa, where did it come from? What's kind of festering inside of me? And, finding out what makes us tick, by God's grace, by Him shedding that light on a path in our life. And we begin to understand who we are, why we think the way that we do. And we submit that to our Heavenly Father and start to give it to Him. And let Him become Lord. Again, every day.
And it's so beautiful. We have a little of Nebuchadnezzar in us.
Probably human nature. But I think what's great about this story, though, is it really kind of separates earthly power versus the kind of divine power. Because you have in the case, he's got the power to get a bunch of guys, put these guys in shackles, and throw them in the fire. I mean, he's got that power. That's kind of an earthly power. But the power to control the flames, when the guys were in there, he had no control over that. That was divine power. So I think this really shows that no matter how much earthly power you have, there's still that separation.
Not only that, but it was God Himself used Nebuchadnezzar to witness them and to bring judgment to His own people. So Nebuchadnezzar will destroy the temple in 586 and tear the people down one. who are then built, who are then able to go God. So now he bring the captives, now he put people always like the Lord does, in some closer to the king, to have influence and to lead their people in that years of exile. Jeremiah, you wrote, if you do welfare of the land and live there, I make you even prosper there. So the application to us is even you can live in the pagan nation or whatever, if you are a real ambassador for Christ, God can bless us there too, and you'll be a light, even in the pagan environment. That's the application for us.
Yeah, and we're getting more pagan by the day. It seems that way anyway. But you can believe what you see in the press. Absolutely.
Nebuchadnezzar was just having a private bonfire. He roast these guys. He wouldn't have been quite so humble or humiliated by the experience.
He was doubly.
Because he had thousands of people that were just watching this power unfold and just collapse on him.
I was wondering if it's his 50th birthday party and he built the statue and everybody had to come and celebrate it,
Yeah, he has quite a crowd there, which makes this quite a witness. So his plan was one thing, to glorify himself and this thing that he built in the desert. God had a slightly different plan. Because he brought all these leaders together, and what was the word they went out with? Touch the Jews.
Well, I think it's kind of funny that he sort of pretends that it was all his plan, because therefore I decree, after he loses the whole situation.
Yeah, right.
And then he says, yeah, so I decree this,
He sounds like a modern politician.
Yeah, right. Positive spin on it.
So, who is this guy that Nebuchadnezzar sees? Who does he think he is, that he sees with the three men in the burning furnace?
Thinks he's an angel.
Jesus, right.
He even said he looks like a son of the gods, or a son of God.
What a great moment. Not just that, that's the obvious question, are any of us in the furnace right now as Jesus Christ?
That people, if you compare now the Apostle Paul, when Stephen was stoned to death, somehow you see how this guy can explain all the history of Israel since the Abraham and was willing to die. I think they make an impact in him. You see a guy where he seems like he knew something you don't know. Later on, you realize, and this guy who was the good thing, God spared them, but sometimes God now he can spare Paul or to be beheaded or Peter to be crucified upside down. But sometimes, God allow, he have power to deliver them like they did in this circumstances. But sometimes for his purpose and plan, sometimes to be a witness like Stephen. I think that the Apostle Paul was you see that experience himself. I think he was changed in that moment.
Yeah.
Now, what about us? Have we ever been in a furnace, a trial, a fiery trial, and has Jesus been with us? Anybody want to share from your own experience?
I don't really want to share it, but I was thinking it already. I won't share the story, but when I was in counseling, probably 12, 15 years ago, I was dealing with a really tough conflict about any kids. I was terrified, it was all the details, but the counselor, Christian counseling, she wanted me to close my eyes and go back to where the original trauma happened. And be quiet. Where's Jesus in this picture? He pissed me off so much, but I was quiet enough. And it was as though the Lord spoke to me and showed me what could have happened versus what did happen. doing the best he could to keep people at bay so that I could survive. This is when I was in my young teens, so this was going back, the Lord, in this prayer time, it took me 40 years, close to 40 years, to where horrible things were happening to me. That part of my healing was to know that Jesus never left me, never forsake me. And it was horrible, but it was a reminder that I was loved, I was beloved, and that he brought me through it. That was, for me, that was a furnace, just going back to those traumatic experiences in my early teens was just, my stuff filled me in with sad recognition for that. Going back though, I didn't think I could survive reliving the experiences. And I did. And Jesus was there.
Amen, and thank God. Anybody else?
I think just explain a little bit. I went through, I don't want to just to go through, but to rely on God. First Peter 3 explain about, about the furnace fire, and so we gotta always remember God have the thermostat and they have the clock in his hand. You think a lot of people appreciate, all of us, we have just to be a silver rose, praise the Lord. But when you go through that problem or whatever, the time or anything, when everything is rosy, we say all the time, oh, the times now goes by so fast, yesterday I was 20 years old now. But in those circumstances, the time, you don't go quiet so fast, when you are, the days become like years, but God is in control. The purpose, sometimes you don't know. The purpose of the furnace is worse for the God is to, but you know how much you can bear, how much you can handle in that situation, and how long you're going to be there. That's the key. Peter explained very clearly, chapter 3. That's a lot of people think for a believer, well, God is not in this because I am in this. But God is in that. He is the one who controls the clock and the thermostat.
Thank you, that's excellent theology. I was just wondering if I can encourage anyone, if anyone wants to share about a personal experience when they were in that furnace, and Jesus was with them for the edification of your brothers. Anybody?
Don't need me being the only sufferer, come on.
Chris can't be the only one who's had Jesus at his side.
I had a lot of experiences as a teenager. I remember one in particular where I was with some guys and they stole a pocketbook from the lady, and I was in the back of the car. And these guys aren't around anymore. They were driving so fast and so crazy on these back roads, like 120 miles an hour. I was so afraid I was going to die that night. And he was with me. I'm still here.
Anybody else? Thank you, guys. Yes, sir.
It's not really a furnace, it was maybe a voice, you want to call it. I was probably 12, 13. And I came from a broken family. And my brother, one of my brothers was a hooligan, shall we say. Got in trouble with the law quite a bit. And did some pretty unsavory things. This actually was St. Patrick's Day night. And I was home alone at the house. And my brother came back. And he obviously was under the influence of something. And ends up that some people showed up at the house, his peers. They accused him of robbing a young lady at a party that they were at. And he had a pocketbook in the house with him. They got him. Two guys were from just came back from Vietnam, had him on the ground, beating the crap out of him. And I was young. I didn't know what to do. And I was hunting at this time. I pulled a shotgun out, popped the shell in that chamber, closed that chamber, and walked into them and said, stop. And, they said, but they just, young kid, I held the gun right at him. I said, stop, and I knew my brother did what he did. Probably deserved everything he was getting. But something all of a sudden just came over me. God only knows what. And I just, was it fear? Was it something? I mean, I was ready to let it fly. And I just put it down. And they said, good. And they backed off of me when they saw me do this. But it was a moment that could have probably changed my life if I had done what I'd done. I'd probably be somewhere at this point in my life. So that little voice, whatever it was, it came into me just like very quick, very quick. And I remember that distinctly. I said, and I think back, I reflect on that moment. I said, man, things, the way life unfolds for you, could have been something very bad at that point if I had followed through. And what stopped me? Because it was anger and fear at the same time. So anyway, that's that little furnace thing. Yeah.
Well, I've had some instances where, as a young adult, going out to clubs, partying way too much, waking up in the morning not knowing how I had gotten home, and finding the side of my car wiped out and stuff like that. And I know my mom always prayed for me, and I know Jesus was with me every step of the way, coming home from more times than I care to admit, unfortunately. But I got home safe every single time. My car was beat up, damaged, never totaled, but enough to make me wake up and say, okay, thank you, God. Thank you, Lord. Thanks, Mom, for praying for me. I always pray for my kids when they go out. Just pray, Lord, just get them home safe. I'm sure that's what my mom said.
Talk about the endurance of your news.
Yeah, you go.
That's when your kids go out.
Yeah, oh, absolutely, absolutely. And it doesn't have to be them. I mean, in my case, like I said, many a time, and I remember one particular time I was coming out from something, and at this point, I wasn't drinking or anything. I'm sitting at a red light, and I was doing something, maybe looking for a cassette tape. Cassette tape, that's how long ago this was. Looking for a cassette tape. So I'm fumbling in there, and the light turns green, and I'm waiting, I finding the tape. I find the tape, I put it in, and as I'm about ready to go, here comes the car speeding down the parkway, running the red light, 60, 70, 80 miles an hour. I don't know how fast it was, and I would have been gone. I would have been gone. I just right there, I said, thank you, God. And at this time, I committed my life to Jesus at this point. So it's like I knew again he was there for me. And, just ahead of you. Usually the light turns green, you go. And I had to cut across and go, man, there comes this car flying this way. And it would have been, and, very grateful and thankful that he was with me that night.
Well, the worst phone call we ever had was 2:00 and my daughter from the hospital. My daughter was in a serious accident when she was up at RPI. And they said, who you are? He said, here's your daughter? Yes. He says, you need to come to the hospital. It was 108 miles from our house to Albany. We were there in about an hour. But, because they won't tell you anything over the phone at 2:00 in the morning, other than you need to come to the hospital. Not a word. And this, when you find a cop, yeah, driving up 100 miles an hour on the Mass Turnpike, 100 miles an hour, we get there. We walk into the hospital, an Episcopal priest meets us. It wasn't us, it was her sorority sister. But you cannot imagine the shock of at 2:00 or 3:00 in the morning when your kids are out. It's just, and then of course they're out at college, you don't ever expect to get that phone call. It was a long 2 weeks in ICU.
No, I was about to say that, it's easy, it's not easy, but to look at all the times that the Lord has protected us from something being worse. And then there's the times where the worst has happened and the Lord is there to bring you out into healing. Because, oh my God, my first 4 or 5 years in recovery were just terrifying, remembering all these stupid, fun things I did in my teens and twenties, albeit there was a medicated purpose to it. But, you know, timing is everything. We were just up in New Hampshire, up in Randolph, right up there in north of the White Mountains. And the day after we left, there was a pickup truck that crossed the double yellow line and took out a whole group of motorcycles, killed 7 people like that, left people being medevaced. And where the Lord was in that moment with these people versus where the Lord is going to be in the healing process with all the people that have survived it and are recovering from it and that are being overwhelmed by how horrific it was. Just realizing that he could go in and fix broken hearts, you know? The bones and all that stuff, but man, when he can fix a really devastated heart, for me, that's the real miracle, that he can fix a trashed, hardened, disgusted, angry heart. If you let him say, all right, Jesus, where are you right now? I want to kick you in the groin. Where are you? And he'll be there. Say, go ahead. Have it out. Let's get to the tears. Let's get beyond why you're so pissed off, why you're so upset, why you're so this, that. Let's get to the tears so I can hold you. And I don't know how many guys here have experienced that, gotten to that point where we stop fighting and we allow him to hold us and cry into his shoulder. For me, that's most of my story, is you know, most of the battles and the wounds that I survived were before I started the healing process. Anyway, sorry, that's much.
He's close to those that are broken in heart, by his spirit. That's when he's special.
Yeah, I just love that. I just love that verse. I just love it so much. Especially close to the broken-hearted and those crushed in spirit. And on that note, I'm going to start a little prayer, and I'm going to ask you please to join in. Jesus is right here. He's with us. We've seen this incredible testimonies of faith. We can trust in him. We can pray to him. Let's remember writing out prayer.
Yes.
Larry has a procedure coming up. All of the various concerns that you might have, please speak right up. Please, let's pray. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for the time and the place and the opportunity. Thank you for these very wonderful men and for the sweet time of sharing that we've had together. And thank you for the movement of your Holy Spirit here in this room and in our hearts. And now we come before you, Lord.